The old house stood at the edge of town, shrouded in mystery and whispers of the past. It was a Victorian mansion, once grand, now decaying. The paint peeled, revealing layers of history. The lawn was overgrown, nature reclaiming what was once meticulously maintained. And the windows, dark and empty, seemed to watch you, as if the house itself had eyes. This was Grimshaw Dental, a place where the past lingered in every shadow. Dr. Grimshaw wasn't always the town dentist. His arrival was sudden, and his presence unsettling. He arrived a year ago, a stranger with a sad smile that hinted at untold stories. The townsfolk were curious, but wary. He bought the old Victorian mansion and turned it into his clinic. The transformation was swift, yet the eerie aura of the house remained. People said he chose the location because no one else wanted it. The house had a reputation, one that kept others away. They said he liked being alone, that he found solace in the solitude that the old mansion provided. Inside, the clinic was dark and silent, the kind of silence that made you hold your breath. Dust motes danced in the faint light, creating an almost ethereal atmosphere, as if the past was still alive in those particles. The air smelled of antiseptic and something else, something metallic like the scent of old blood. It made your skin crawl, a visceral reaction to the unseen and the unknown. But Dr. Grimshaw's smile, that was the worst part. It was a smile that never reached his eyes. It wasn't warm or inviting. It was distant, as if he was smiling at something only he could see. It was wide and sharp, like a predator baring its teeth, a smile that promised more than just dental care. The tools he used were old, some even rusty, adding to the unsettling atmosphere of the clinic. The townsfolk whispered among themselves, exchanging uneasy glances whenever Dr. Grimshaw's name was mentioned. Time seemed to move slowly in Grimshaw Dental, each second stretching into an eternity. Some claimed to see shadowy figures moving in the clinic, ghostly presences that added to the building's haunted reputation. The lights would flicker occasionally, casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. Patients would enter with trepidation, their eyes wide with fear, but they rarely spoke of their experiences. An old, dusty ledger sat on the reception desk, filled with names written in faded ink, a record of those who had come and gone. And through it all, Dr. Grimshaw's gaze remained piercing and cold, as if he could see right through you. As dusk fell, the mansion stood as an ominous silhouette against the darkening sky, a beacon of unease in the quiet town. A lone crow perched on a nearby branch, its cawing echoing into the night, adding to the sense of foreboding that surrounded Grimshaw Dental. People in town started going to Dr. Grimshaw out of necessity. Their regular dentist had retired. Grimshaw was their only option. He was surprisingly good. His patients raved about his gentle touch and painless procedures. They left his office with perfect smiles, their teeth gleaming.
But something wasn't right. People noticed their neighbors acting strangely after visiting Dr. Grimshaw.
Their eyes seemed vacant, their smiles strained. They spoke in hushed tones, their words slurred. They were like strangers wearing familiar faces.
Dr. Grimshaw had a secret, a dark obsession hidden in the basement of his clinic. Down in the cold, damp darkness, he toiled away at his gruesome work.
Years ago, I lost my family in a tragic accident. My wife, my children, all gone, but I refused to let go.
He clung to the past, his grief twisting into a horrifying obsession. He believed he could reunite with his family, bring them back from the dead, and the key to his twisted plan lay in teeth. Dr. Grimshaw discovered a way to transfer consciousness into teeth. He believed that teeth held memories, echoes of the soul. He experimented on the teeth of the deceased, trying to extract those echoes, to hear their voices once more. And then, he took it a step further. He began to implant those teeth into the mouths of his patients, convinced he could bring his family back, piece by piece. He chose his patients carefully, looking for those who resembled his lost loved ones. Their smiles would be his family's smiles, their voices, his family's voices. Section 5. The fog rolls in. A strange fog settled over the town, clinging to the streets like a shroud. It rolled in after dark, thick and cloying, muffling sound and obscuring sight. People said the fog smelled strange, like wet earth and something else, something sickly sweet. It seeped into your clothes, into your hair, leaving a lingering feeling of unease. And with the fog came the whispers. People swore they heard voices in the night, faint and mournful, coming from the direction of Grimshaw Dental. Sarah had always been wary of Dr. Grimshaw. She didn't trust his smile. She didn't like the way he looked at people, his eyes lingering a moment too long.
Her best friend, Emily, had been acting strangely after a visit to Grimshaw Dental. Her laugh was different, her words stilted, and her eyes, once filled with warmth, were now cold and distant. I knew something was wrong. I had to find out what was happening at Grimshaw Dental, even if it meant confronting the doctor myself.
Under the cover of darkness, Sarah crept towards Grimshaw Dental. The fog swirled around her ankles, chilling her to the bone. The house loomed large, its shadow swallowing her whole. She slipped inside, her heart pounding in her chest. The air was thick with the smell of antiseptic and that other indescribable odor. The sound of muffled cries echoed from the basement.
That's where the answers lay.
The basement was cold and damp. The air was thick with the scent of mildew, and the walls seemed to close in with every breath. It was a place where light dared not linger, and shadows danced with sinister intent. Surgical instruments gleamed under a single bare bulb. The light cast long, eerie shadows that seemed to move on their own, creating an atmosphere of dread. Each tool was meticulously arranged, as if waiting for its next victim. Jars filled with teeth lined the shelves, their contents eerily illuminated by the flickering light. Each jar told a story of pain and horror, a testament to the twisted mind that collected them. The teeth, some yellowed with age, others fresh and white, seemed to whisper secrets of their own, and in the center of the room, strapped to a chair, was Emily. Her wrists and ankles were bound tightly, leaving no room for escape. The chair creaked under her weight, a haunting sound that echoed through the basement. Her eyes were vacant, her mouth stretched into a grotesque grin. It was a smile devoid of joy, a mask of terror that spoke of unspeakable horrors. Her once vibrant spirit seemed to have been drained, leaving behind an empty shell.
She just needs one more piece to complete the puzzle, one more soul to satisfy the insatiable hunger that gnawed at her being.
Dr. Grimshaw stood over her, a drill in his hand, a crazed look in his eyes. His face was twisted with a maniacal glee, a reflection of the madness that consumed him. The drill whirred to life, its sound a harbinger of the pain to come. He was humming a lullaby, a twisted off-key melody that sent chills down Sarah's spine. The tune was familiar yet distorted, a perverse version of a childhood memory turned nightmare.
One more, and my family will be whole again. The words hung in the air, heavy with a promise of darkness. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the inevitable conclusion to this macabre tale.
Sarah couldn't let him do it. The thought of what Dr. Grimshaw was planning sent shivers down her spine. She had to act quickly. Every second counted. The dimly lit room seemed to close in on her, but she couldn't afford to be paralyzed by fear. She had to save Emily, had to stop this madness. The little girl's terrified eyes pleaded for help, and Sarah knew she was the only one who could protect her. The fog outside seemed to seep into the room, adding to the sense of urgency. She couldn't let Emily fall into Grimshaw's hands. As Dr. Grimshaw raised the drill, Sarah lunged, knocking the instrument from his grasp. The drill clattered to the floor in slow motion, a moment of triumph that was short-lived. The confrontation was intense, the air thick with tension. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she faced the enraged doctor. The doctor roared in anger, his eyes blazing with fury, his face contorted with rage, and for a moment Sarah feared he might overpower her. But she couldn't back down now. She had to be strong for Emily, had to find a way to escape this nightmare. He lunged at Sarah, but she dodged, scrambling to her feet. The room seemed to spin as she evaded his grasp, her movements fueled by sheer adrenaline. She had to stay one step ahead, had to keep moving. The shadows seemed to come alive, adding to the chaos of the moment. A chase ensued, a desperate race through the darkened house, Sarah's screams swallowed by the fog. The corridors twisted and turned, each corner a potential trap. The fog was thick, making it hard to see, but she couldn't stop. She had to keep going, had to find a way out. She managed to escape, pulling Emily with her, but the memory of that night, the horrors she witnessed, would forever haunt her dreams. The fog outside seemed to lift as they emerged, but the weight of what had happened remained. Sarah knew that they were safe for now. but the scars of that night would never fully heal. The fog may have lifted, but the town of Grimshaw would never be the same. The eerie silence that followed was a stark contrast to the chaos that had unfolded. The town seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for the next chapter in its dark history. The streets were empty, but the sense of unease lingered. The whispers lingered, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface. The town's secrets were far from buried, and Sarah knew that the shadows would always be a part of Grimshaw. The flickering lights in the hallway seemed to echo the uncertainty that lay ahead.
The whispers lingered, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface. The town of Grimshaw held its breath, waiting for the next chapter in its haunted history. The shadows were never far away, always ready to reclaim their place in the story.